Hello and welcome to another episode of LowEndBox TV. I'm wondering how many of you are familiar with Mailinator. Mailinator is a disposable webmail system. I don't know about you, but as I cruise around the web, I often run into websites that want me to put in my email address, and I know that if I give them my email address, I'm going to be spammed from now until probably the end of time, or at least I'm going to have to go through the headache of unsubscribing, etc. What Mailinator allows you to do is to give out really any email address you want at mailinator.com. So you could make up Blue Sky at mailinator.com or James Bond 007 at mailinator.com, or just random letters and numbers. And then when you want to check the email to see if any email has come in from that, you just go to mailinator.com and enter the public email address, and you can immediately view anything that's come into it. So for example, if I gave someone the name tomato juice at mailinator.com, tomato juice, well, look at that. There's an email from RainDog308. The cool thing about this is I'm not pre-registering these email addresses. I'm not authenticating. I'm not logging in. I'm not having to set things up. I could give you tomato juice at mailinator.com. I could give someone else Diet Coke at mailinator.com. I could give somebody else, old whiskey at mailinator.com. Whatever, however I wanted to give out those email addresses. Now, there are a couple drawbacks with Mailinator. Obviously, this is all public, right? So anybody, as soon as you view this tutorial, you can go in and look at anything that comes to tomato juice at mailinator.com, and so can I, and so can anybody viewing. So obviously, this is not appropriate for, credit card information, financial information, personal identifiable information, personal emails you're sending back and forth. But it is good for those click to confirm, or I'm going to send you a one-time code, those kind of things where after the email arrives and is read, it's really no longer useful. Second of all, of course, just to make this clear, you can only receive emails at Mailinator. You cannot send emails from Mailinator. So again, it's a disposable webmail system. The second problem I would say with Mailinator is that it has become well known. So there are a lot of organizations now that when you go to sign up and give them your email address, they're going to turn around and say, oh, we don't take mailinator.com, or they won't validate that email address because they know that's not really your email address. So today, what I'm going to show you is how to set up your own privately hosted Mailinator using a product called Inbucket. Inbucket is a disposable webmail system that you can use to run something very similar to Mailinator on your own VPS. And it doesn't take a ton of resources. Obviously, if you have 1,000 people using it, you would, but just for personal use or a couple people, it is pretty resource friendly. I'm going to be using a 768 megabyte VM today from RackNerd, but you could host this on pretty much anything. Even I think if I've run it on a 512 meg VPS. So let's go ahead and get started with setting up Inbucket. All right, so I'm logged into my VPS here, and this is a 768 meg VPS, and I am running Debian 10. So I really haven't done much with this VPS other than just install. I set up my SSH key, a couple things like that, but otherwise it is a pretty virgin install of Debian. Now, the first thing you really have to do before you do anything is to make sure you've got your DNS record set up. I'm going to be working with the lowend.party domain, so let's check that out. I want to make sure I've got my MX record set up, so type MX lowend.party. And if you don't have the dig utility, that's in the DNS utils package. You can just install that with apt. All right, so here in the answer section, I sent out a query, and what I got back was that my MX record does point to mail.lowend.party, and that's the name, the host name of this system. Now I've also got, of course, I've set it up in DNS mail.lowend.party. Yep, there's my DNSA record. Okay, so we're good to go as far as DNS, but if you don't have that MX record, that's what tells various mail servers on the internet where to send email that's addressed to lowend.party. All right, second thing to do is just to make sure you don't have anything else running like XM or Postfix or SendMail or any other type of webmail, well, not webmail, just any kind of mail system that is on port 25. Now, Inbucket is probably because Inbucket is going to take care of all of that distro's package manager. And there's a couple different ways to install it. You can go to GitHub, clone the repo, and build it from source if you want to do that. But what I'm going to do is just go here to inbucket.org, come down here under Get It, go to Binaries, and then I'm going to grab this, since I'm using a Debian 10 system, I'm going to grab this amd64.deb file and wget that onto my VPS and use that for setup. Now, I showed you how to, or where to grab that that binary, so let's just go ahead and grab that. Boom, and then we can just use dpackage to install it, and it's set up. Now, there's a couple different ways to configure Inbucket. I'm going to go in and just modify the service directly, but then I'll show you how to use their configurator, which might be easier for you. Before we continue, I'd like to highlight one of our community advertisers. RackNerd was voted as the #1 top provider in LowEndTalk's 2020 Best Provider Awards. They offer VPS service in New York, Chicago, Seattle, and Dallas, and have always delivered fantastic value for our community with truly exceptional pricing. I use RackNerd myself for some of my own hosting and for some of the tutorial projects on this channel. I've been very happy with their support and the performance of their VMs. They've garnered a lot of praise, and their offers have received many positive reviews in our community. So next time you're looking for a VM, check out RackNerd's offers on LowEndTalk and LowEndBox, or visit them at racknerd.com. So I'm going to go into lib systemd system and modify this Inbucket service. Okay, so this is a standard systemd unit file. Let's just walk through some of these options. For the SMTP, instead of running it on 2500, I'm going to run it on 25 because this will actually be receiving email from around the internet. I'm going to turn off POP3 because I'm not using that. Now, the web address by default is running on port 9000, and it's open to the world. What I'm going to do actually is show you how to use a password authentication for this to make it a little bit more private, how to use SSL to make it encrypted to and from the server. So instead of running it directly on facing the internet, we're going to run it on localhost here. So change this to 127.0.0.1. We'll leave it on port 9000. And I don't think there's anything else that we really need to change. Now, this storage type equals file here, that is telling us that it will store each email on disk. And if you're using a low memory system, and 768 megs is kind of on the lower side, that's what I would recommend doing. By default, if you don't have that in there, Inbucket will keep all the emails in memory, which is certainly much more performant, but you won't have that much memory on a small system like this. The other thing I'm going to do is change it from daemon and daemon to root and root. This is because I'm running on port 25 here for SMTP, and otherwise I'm going to get a bind to port error. I don't think there's anything else I need to change, so let's just quit that. Okay, so I showed you kind of the manual configuration method, but I also want to show you the Inbucket Configurator, which is a cool web-based system for configuring. Go to inbucket.org, and then under installation here, there is this configurator. And how this works is that you go through and you make all your selections here, and then down at the bottom, it spits out these environment variables, which you could then paste into your systemd startup file. Let's just walk through some of these real quick. Most of these I won't be changing, and I don't really change a lot of them even in my production configuration. Obviously, I want to change my SMTP port. I'm going to leave a lot of these the same. Default, yeah, these all look fine. I'm not running POP3, so I'm not going to worry about that. For the web, I will leave it on port 9000. This file here, this UI/greeting.html, I wouldn't change it here, but you could edit it to edit the HTML. Just go find that file and edit it, and then when you bring up the web interface, you'll see whatever you put in that file. One thing that I would probably recommend is under storage is changing it to file. And the reason for that is that Inbucket will keep all of your files, all of your emails in memory if you don't. as we discussed. Okay, so let's see here. Retention period, that's how long it's going to retain the emails, removing messages that are older than 24 hours. It's a little short to me. I'm going to make it 168 hours, so it'll keep all emails for a week. And then you could also cap however many emails, the maximum in a single mailbox. There's a bunch of other stuff you can do there. So here down at the bottom, as you've made these changes, it modifies them down here, and then you can just highlight this, copy, and paste it into your systemd unit file to change anything you want. Or, of course, you can just go into the unit file and directly edit these things. But this is kind of a cool way just to see what all the different configuration options are and configure your Inbucket in a pretty easy way. System control, daemon reload, not sure that's necessary because it's the first time I've used it, but it can't hurt. System control, enable Inbucket, and system control, start Inbucket. Now it should be running. Let's take a look. Grep Inbucket. Sure enough, it's there running, and it is actually receiving email now. Now what I want to do is set up Nginx, is what I'm going to use to proxy the port 9000. So right now Inbucket's web interface is running on port 9000, but it's running on localhost. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Nginx running facing the internet, and I'm going to put some password authentication in there, and then when I go to mail.lowend.party in my browser, I'll hit Nginx. Nginx can then proxy Inbucket, and we'll be in a little bit more secure setup. So let's install apt-get. Install Nginx, Apache 2 utils, you'll see later why we need that, and then Python certbot. Nginx will set it up with Let's Encrypt. Alright, we'll let that cook here for a second to install all that good stuff. And then once it's done, we're going to go into and configure Nginx here. Alright, so let's go over here to let's see here. Actually, I want to make a directory first. You'll see why in a moment why we need this. Actually, let's just go here to var local, and you'll see that there is this Inbucket directory. If I go into the Inbucket directory, you'll see there's the mail, and that's where it'll actually store all the emails that come in. But I'm going to create one here called certbot, and that's where it will store the we'll use that directory as the web root for challenges. So if that doesn't make sense to you, certbot is what is used to renew and the first time to actually get, and then later to renew the Let's Encrypt SSL certificates. But it's going to need some kind of a directory on disk where it can create a directory called .wellknown, and that's where it will authenticate to the certbot servers. So that's what we're going to use here. So that path, we go in there, will be var local Inbucket certbot. I'll show you how we set that all up here. So let's go to Etsy Nginx and go into sites available. This is all standard Nginx stuff, and we're going to create one called mail LowEnd party. And I'm going to paste in something that I've already created to save us all time here. So let's paste this in. Actually, I'm not going to log for this example. You could, of course. So this is a pretty simple Nginx setup. I've got my server name defined. It's listening on port 80. We will fix that as part of certbot. And then the location .wellknown, which is where certbot is going to store its authentication information for the certbot servers to prove that you really do own this domain, will be in var local Inbucket certbot, that directory that we just created. And then down here is the information that does the proxying bit. So proxy pass means that for the root directory of our website, proxy that to whatever's running on localhost port 9000, which is the Inbucket daemon. And then we've got some just basic authentication. This is the realm, mail.lowend.party, or that's kind of the prompt that comes up in your web browser, and then where we store that user file. All right, so let's save that. And if you noticed, I created this Etsy Nginx users here. By no means do you have to use that. You can store these wherever you want, but I'm just going to keep it there, Etsy Nginx users. And then here's where I'm going to use, remember we installed that Apache 2 utils package. So we're going to use one of its utilities, htpassword, create Etsy Nginx users, mail users, and let's put Raindog308 in it. And we'll give Raindog308 a password. Cool. Now I need to make this Nginx site available. So if you're not familiar with Nginx, or you're not super familiar with it, you create things in the sites available directory, and then when you want to actually make those sites live, you link them into sites enabled. So let's sites available, mail, low end party here. Okay, so we should be up and running here. All right, so now we just need to, we could do an Nginx T to make sure everything's okay, great. And then system control, restart Nginx. Okay, the only final thing I want to do here is get it set up with SSL. So for that, I will use certbot. Certbot, authenticator, webroot, installer, Nginx. Now, the first time it asks you for your email address, that's fine. I'm going to agree. No, we don't need to share my email address. Okay, so we're going to activate for mail LowEnd.party. And the web root here will be this var local Inbucket certbot. Waiting for verification, cleaning up challenges, and we should be good to go now. There it is. It's deployed the certificate, and we'll put the redirect in. Now, if we go and look at mail.lowend.party, we can see that it's it, being certbot, has added these additional parameters which enable SSL and set up the certificate and everything, and then it does a redirect for us. So that if you try to go to mail.lowend.party as HTTP as opposed to HTTPS, it will redirect you to HTTPS. Now, one other thing I want to point out here, the location .wellknown, which is where certbot is going to keep all of its authentication information, so that when it goes to renew the certificate, it can talk to the certbot servers. That is not password protected. We don't want that, because otherwise certbot won't know, what password, etc. to, or I should say that the Let's Encrypt authenticator won't know how to enter a username and password. So that part is not password protected, but the main mail.lowend.party, the Inbucket section, is password protected, and that's that definition here. All right, and one final step that we need to do here is just restart Nginx again. Okay, and with that, we should be up and running. We've got our Inbucket daemon running, we've got Nginx running, so let's go take a look at in our web browser. All right, now here in my browser, I've gone to mail.lowend.party, and of course it has prompted me to log in as we asked it to, so let's go ahead and log in. And I'm presented with the Inbucket web interface here. Now, there's a couple cool things you can do here. You could see recent mailboxes. Those are mailboxes I've looked at. And I can look at status here, and that will tell me things, basic configuration information, but also information like how much memory we're using, how many messages we've received, how much disk space we're using, etc. I'm going to go into one of the mailboxes. Let's go to Blue Sky. And as you can see, I've received an email here, which I sent to myself. Again, I sent this to Blue Sky at lowend.party. I did not have to pre-configure that. I didn't have to register it, set it up, or anything like that. You can pick any name, any legal email address, which is a valid combination of letters, numbers, period, and hyphen, I think, are the allowed characters. So put them together however you want and send it to that email address at lowend.party, and it shows up here as a mailbox. I put in one also to $7 at Inbucket, or at at lowend.party, and there's the email address. So that's pretty much how it works. It's a very simple system. Really all you have to do is set it up, and as you can see, it only took about 10-15 minutes to go through and set it up, and then you can receive disposable emails to your heart's content. If you enjoyed this content today, I would like to invite you to come to LowEndBox.com or LowEndTalk.com, where we have fantastic deals on hosting, more technical content like this, and spirited discussion on all things related to information technology, computers, and hosting. Until next time, happy hosting.